You ready, Micah? So, welcome to the Local Pickup. I am Chris Gervais.
I am Jason Broadwater.
Oh my gosh, we switched personalities. So, the guitar that we're going to talk about today is a 1952 Gretsch Synchromatic 100F.
Dang.
Thank you. We talked about when you would say dang.
Yeah.
You did good.
100F every time you say that.
Yeah. So I did a lot of research online to figure out the 100F piece, right? There's this crazy bridge, stair-step, drop-down thing.
Weird.
There's this really over-the-top cool tailpiece here with Gretsch etched into it and all this craziness going on. The guitar has super low action for an old acoustic. I imagine that it would be like really high and hard to play. It is like playing an electric guitar, like a nice electric guitar. It was a mid-range to higher-end guitar when it was made. The bridge has way more room to continue to go down. I mean, it can go down so far to where it's not even playable. So you have plenty of room to lower and raise the action. It's got a beautiful checking on it. I mean, the guitar is just gorgeous. It's aged well. Now, like all these Gretsches, the binding, this around the edge, has come off in many places. And it's real common with old Gretsch guitars. They just didn't do the binding in a way that was going to last. And what we've done is gone in and glued it down where it was sticking up, just so we didn't like catch it on our shirt and rip it off, but just to stop it from getting worse. If the guitar was ever, fully restored, you would completely replace the binding. I mean, you can see in places it's just missing altogether.
Yeah.
But to me, I would never change. I like it the way it is. There's also damage on the face. So this is crazy, man. We have the pickup. We have the pick guard that goes on here, the original one, but it's melted and then broken half. Later, broken half. But something happened, like some high amount of heat in this one concentrated area that melted the pick guard and melted the finish right here, and it
may have just been left outside in the summer.
In the sun or something, yeah. And this was the padding on the back of the pick guard, so that it had padding, and it melted to the guitar. But aside from the heat that was on that pick guard that melted the pick guard and damaged the face, there is no damage to the wood whatsoever. And the guitar, in terms of a playable guitar, it is in absolutely wonderful, wonderful condition. There has been a repair on the headstock. It cracked right here and somebody repaired it. But everything on it's original. We have the original pick guard, and it just plays so well. It's got that old woody sound that people have now rediscovered in indie music, but it's that old. It's not like a normal acoustic guitar that I would think of as normal with the hole in it, flat top acoustic. It has that big, bassy, sound. This has got like a mid cut.
Yeah.
You can even play it hard.
Yeah,
and stuff,
it's almost in the direction of like a resonator.
Yeah,
guitar.
it is. And I've increasingly gotten to where I play it hard with a pick, like. And of course, the picking that you can endlessly do on such a guitar just sounds beautiful. But these old arch tops, man, I think they have such a unique sound. You can play country, kind of picking stuff. Now, they were made for jazz, and country guitars were flat top guitars.
Yeah.
So flat tops with the hole in it that most people will recognize as an acoustic guitar.
Blue jeans and flat top guitars and cowboy boots.
Absolutely. I mean, that was made for country music. And the arch tops were made for jazz music. But now that they've been rediscovered, people are playing, singer-songwriters, country folks are playing on them because it sounds like it's got maybe, I don't know if it's tinny or woody.
Yeah, but it's simultaneously, the thing is it does, but it isn't just one sound. Like you sort of like, the more you listen to it, it's like there's presence of sort of that high end, but then there is warmth to it.
There really is, and it's a beautiful sound. And you know, a lot of these that they made electric, like we did the one on the Epiphone archtop that they made electric, they made it out of thick laminate that was heavy, and it takes away some of the beauty of the acoustic sound. See, that sounds great. I love that.
Yeah.
And the difference between that and a normal flat top acoustic guitar,
yeah, definitely. It's just it's not the same sound.
it sounds older.
And it's like there's pieces of that quality to it.
Yeah, and it's not for everybody. Some people are like, I wish this sounded bigger and clearer and all that stuff, but to me, it just sounds like old man on the porch.
Yeah.
Like 30 years ago, you know, 50 years ago. And I mean, this guitar is 60-something years old, right?
Yeah, well, this isn't the oldest one. What?
It's 52.
Yeah.
I think it's the oldest one we have here.
Yeah, I think it's the oldest guitar we have here.
Yeah.
It looks like it.
Oh, yeah, it's so great.
That's kind of why it's mind-blowing that it plays so easy.
Oh, the action, the neck, everything is it's got a big chunky neck. It's easy to hold and play, and just feels fantastic, man. And I can't believe the action's so low on it either. I just expected it to be unplayable. I don't know why. That's my own lack of experience, I guess, with nicer archtops.
Yeah, I assume any guitar is just older, because it just odds are, you know, the neck's gonna be warped.
Unless it's a high-end Gibson that's well taken care of or something like that.
Yeah, and most things don't get taken care of in general.
Yeah,
so.
seriously. Gretsch started as, of course, same old story. An immigrant comes to New York, and this was a German immigrant, and he starts the Gretsch company and starts making really high-end quality, well luthiered, you know, instruments, and gets into guitars because they become the craze after the banjo, and you know, they make archtop guitars for jazz musicians, and that was basically after the father started the company, he died like 12 years into it, and like an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, or maybe 22, I can't remember. Fred Gretsch took over the company, Fred Gretsch Jr., or no, he might have been senior, I think, at that point. He was the first Fred Gretsch. Took over the company, and man, it exploded. They moved into an 80-story building.
Wow.
They were in you know, like Lower Manhattan. They were one of the premier guitar makers in the country, making great archtop guitars. And it went on, you know, went to Fred Gretsch Jr., took over the company, and they were just superstars of this kind of guitar until, you know, Leo Fender's Telecaster came out, and it changed the game, and everybody had to scramble and figure out what to do, right? Gibson, of course, by the end of that decade had come out with the Les Paul. That was their response. So what was Gretsch going to do? Well, they came out with they were the most rock and roll of them all.
Yeah.
I mean, the country gentleman, the Chet Atkins, but then the Dwayne Eddy, the rock and roll. I mean, Gretsch was the rock and roll guitar, because Fender was for surf music and country, and Gibson was for old people. And it was like the rock and roll kids that wanted to play. They were wanting to play those hollow body Gretsch electric guitars. Looks like Brian Setzer's guitar. And
Yeah. It's a very specific sound.
Oh yeah, specific sound, specific look. It was cool. It was rebellious, you know, and all that stuff. And they had the longest celebrity endorsement relationship with Chet Atkins that any guitar maker's ever had. And he was actively involved in designing the guitars, making innovations. I mean, you know, people were really innovating. I mean, these are innovative projects and products that they're coming out with. And but before that, you know, we're going to get ourselves
in a heap of trouble.
Now we're going to get ourselves maybe a Dwayne Eddy or a Chet Atkins country gentleman or something. At some point, we'll do an episode on it. We'll talk about Gretsch electric guitars. But this is a beautiful example of their acoustic guitars. Now, this wasn't their highest end. This was kind of, it was still higher end, but it wasn't their highest end acoustic guitar. And it was something that they would have designed like in the 30s and continue to make into the 50s.
Yeah, it's from the 50s, but it feels like it's from even earlier.
It absolutely
the look
does.
of it and stuff.
Yeah, it feels like a late 30s, early 40s guitar, and but they made it into the 50s until, this guitar was made the same year that the Telecaster came out in '52.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, and that changed everything. And so they were looking at this guitar thinking, man, this is like old. We got to do something different. And so they moved away from these. They discontinued these and started focusing on the electric and rock and roll. But these have been, reissued at times, and I think now there is a rebirth of interest in the old arch tops. And they're not for jazz. I mean, obviously jazz players play arch tops.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. And I don't know much about jazz, but I mean, so they do their thing beautifully well. But the indie acoustic singer-songwriter kind of world has started adopting these arch tops to sound old and cool and just different from a regular acoustic guitar,
Yeah. Yeah, especially the sound. Acoustic guitar is sort of your typical kind of just dreadnought, whatever, just your traditional acoustic guitar. It's a sound. The recording sound of that guitar has fluctuated so much trend-wise, and it's I don't know. It's one instrument that definitely, because the guitar itself only does that one. It's not like an electric guitar where you go get the Les Paul to make the sound, you get a Telecaster to make that sound. The sound of that standard acoustic guitar, which is kind of the standard idea of acoustic rhythmic guitar playing, the instrument itself only does one thing, and so it's sort of recording techniques and stuff that define.
And now you can make them, sound different based on different woods and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you have a all mahogany guitar that's going to sound deeper and a little quieter versus like a birch face guitar is going to sound really bright.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah. There's such a gap. It's just such a different.
It's so different, man. That woody sound. And if you think about it, it's woody because there's no hole right there. I mean, it's bouncing right off the wood.
True, yeah, it's just coming out of the wood, yeah.
Yeah. And they were hoping that would project it, because remember back then it was all about trying to hear. So play some just like power chords or maybe fake jazz chords or something, just like ching, 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 that. Well, so like that's indie punk. I mean more like that would have been the 20s guy in the back, like rhythmic, just like. Yeah. Yeah, so that's like what the guitar was doing before Django Reinhardt made it a lead instrument, And Django came in and he was all solo, and then when they made him electric, Charlie Christian basically revolutionized the guitar by he never played chords, he just free-flowed, one-note soloed, because he was now able to be loud enough to project.
Yeah.
But this is before all that. So this is when people were playing jazz chords, and it was a very rhythmic instrument, And so that kind of woody, mid-range sound could cut through, even though it wasn't loud, it could cut through the mix. Because you had the bass, piano, and you could hear that. It's almost like a hi-hat, You can hear those chords cut through.
Yeah.
So it was very intentional the way they designed these guitars for that reason. And it's cool to see them now be reborn in a day when we can amplify anything.
Right.
It's like people are choosing to go back to an old sound. It sounds like it's kind of like, I love when you put on a record and you put the needle on the record and it goes,
yeah.
That is just magical. So this to me sounds like that record sound.
It just has its own thing. It just creates its own space.
Yeah, so it's great. I've fallen in love with it. I was going to turn it around quickly, but now I kind of don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't think you should. I think you should definitely hold on to this one.
Yeah, it's great. So, cool. So anyway, Gretsch, major guitar maker, started in the U.S. by a German immigrant. Had great success prior to the electric boom, and then and this is an example of it. And then completely reinvented themselves to be one of the dominant electric makers as well, and that'll be for a future episode. So
nice, awesome.
So thanks for joining us on the Local Pickup. Hopefully you can find yourself a 1952 Gretsch Synchromatic, like I did, from a nice gentleman up in Kings Mountain, South Carolina. But you probably won't be so lucky. So keep looking, and we'll see you next time on the Local Pickup.